Hi, this is Doreen Pinkerton. Oh, I have a mint in my mouth. Better not have that in when I'm going to have to sing and talk to you. I wanted to share with you today, this is the third part of a series called Songs, and I'm here at the public library still, and as I've come here weekly this season, I decided to incorporate songs into my study time of some other things I've been doing in here. And so we've talked the first day about some of the things you encounter in internet connections in film, TV, things for songwriters to helpful things, and a song I wrote for you at the time. And then day two, and the song I wrote was about the copy machine, the girl at the copy machine. And then yesterday, this day two, I did for you a song on the folder, because there was a file cabinet behind me, and so was the folder with the story of my life in it, and I was singing to someone about a journey and a feeling I felt at the time. And then I shared with you some of the things that happen when you are in that decade of traveling and singing places, and things that were helpful in self-discovery. So today I am writing to you, or speaking to you, or not writing actually, and I'm going to sing a song early on this time instead of waiting toward the end, mainly because it's on my mind. So as I was sitting here and I was thinking, I wrote about the folder, and then I just saw a lady at the copy machine this time smile at me, probably wondering why I'm talking with these books in front of me instead of writing. So I think I will write a song called She Smiled at Me. And this song could be for anyone. I have no idea how it's going to go yet, but give me a moment. I'm going to think about it. And the theme today is to understand the importance of spontaneity and change of location, and how that helps stimulate new ideas. Before I sing, one more thing. I was at McDonald's. I drove to Winston the other day, and I didn't really know where I was going. I just knew I had to get out of town. And so I always say, head to the mall and you can't go wrong, right, girls? Now, it doesn't mean you go in the mall, but because sometimes I'll get sidetracked if I go in. But I tell myself that, and then it gets me out of town. And then I usually just get a coffee and do my work in the car, or go in somewhere for a little bit, check out one shop, and then head home. But anyways, oh, and in the past, there was, when I used to be in a band, the church band, I would drive for a couple of years. I would drive to a gas station about 20 minutes from our house and back, and that's how I would practice my songs in the car. I'm sure I burned a bit of gas, but it was worth it, because that's how I learned, by the auditory. So anyways, okay, so this is a song called She Smiled at Me. And we can figure out what genre it is at the end, because I don't know. One last thought came in my mind. As a Christian contemporary artist, you know, for so many years, I have so many songs that are in praise and worship ministry, testimonial, or invitational type. And so I'm super familiar and can do that because the Lord, I get inspired when I worship God. They just come out. And so that's no problem. But it's a little harder when sometimes when I'm writing about something just in life. So, all right, here we go. I'm going to call this one a little bit country. She smiled at me. She smiled at me across the room. I felt the love, I felt the love. She smiled at me. Sometimes when I look at her curly hair, and then sometimes when I look at her smile shining bright, her eyes are sparkling in the She's so happy, shining bright. She smiled at me, she smiled at me across the room. She smiled at me, she smiled at me on a day when I was down. She smiled at me, she smiled at me. I feel the love right through the wall. I see her face, I see her glint, I see the look in her eyes. She smiled at me, she smiled at me when I was down. Hey, 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 hey. Hey, 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 hey. Why don't we look the other way when things go wrong? Hey, 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 hey. Hey, 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 hey. She smiled at me, she smiled at me when I was down. Hey, 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 hey. She smiled at me. There you go. So one thing with songwriting is you have to have confidence. I could not do this for you and sing like that if I didn't believe somewhere deep in my core that I could do it. And I think that's really the main thing I wanted to communicate today. No matter what you think of me, I'm at peace because I did what I felt I was led to do today, and that was sing for you a song. So that one is obviously called She Smiled at Me. Another message I wanted to leave here, if I can get another minute on this recording here, is that sometimes you come to a place where you're not sure which way to go. Like, should you put all your monies or your savings or things, you know, not a lot. We're not talking a lot of money. And I struggled sometimes with some of the Christian issues, like of gambling. I really had to work through this one a lot lately. Because sometimes in music, when you are trying to do things in the professional world, you feel like you're gambling because you have so much in the pot and you're having to put a little here, a little here, a little here, and then you have nothing for a while. And then you do, and it doesn't mean that you're doing it to receive a lot of income back, but you're doing it to receive something back, whether it's inner satisfaction, whether it's financial, whether it's hopefully all of it is to glorify God, or whether it's for someone, or maybe the pressure of what someone wants. Like I told you, I've done that with songwriting. They ask me, but you know, there might not be income in it, but it was something I felt led to do for them. And so like in those cases, I did some research myself, and I thought of like how everything in life we do requires us to use common sense and requires us to search for wisdom. And God speaks to us a lot in the book of Ecclesiastes on wisdom. And we see in there, especially with King Solomon, that many times too much of anything, a whole lot of stuff will seem like it's fulfilling you for a while, but then when you get there, you want more, and it doesn't really quite do it. And so I try to apply some of those concepts and those ideas that I read about, because I got really disappointed when I got later on in Ecclesiastes, and he says like, all is nothing, you know, like all wisdom and or everything in life, it burns down to it's nothing, it's not fulfilling. And I kept thinking, well, hopefully something is rewarding, you know. But I realized what he was talking about is when you're doing things for self, you don't feel fulfilled at the end. So I been trying to apply that concept the last, I'd say definitely the first 10 years I pretty much just did for everybody else. And then I found what happens is you get to a point of emptiness, you get depleted because you left yourself out of the equation, and everything you did was great, but you didn't do some of the things you wanted to do. And for whatever reason, I had to learn that lesson. And then I got to the point where I wanted to put more of a balance, and I would try and be more selective in things I did. And that also gave me a reward for a while. But then, just as in King Solomon and the story in Ecclesiastes, all is, it seems like it's pointless. I got to that point again where I just desired something else. It was still, something was missing. And so then I tried to do all praise and worship music, and I went on a thing where I was listening to tons of praise and worship music by various groups, and I was singing every morning and trying to meditate on the Lord, and a lot of songs came. But yet still that feeling was there, even after that year, or year or two. I think it was 2 years of just solid doing that. And then I started writing love songs because I said, well, maybe it means you have to go back to your past when you were young and you were a wedding singer. So, like, for your cousins and everybody's weddings, maybe you're supposed to write more church music or wedding music or love songs or whatever. So I tried doing that. And then I wrote family songs. I went down the line, and, of course they're not all produced, but they're written. And some I go back and listen and I say, wow, I really like those. And a couple I go, what was I thinking? But at the time, it really felt good. And then I discovered that music therapy is very therapeutic. And some of that is what I was doing. I was writing songs because it was freeing me on the inside. It was cleaning me up from the inside out on a lot of things that had never come out and needed to be expressed. Just like you keep a journal. Well, singing was just that. So music therapy became a part of my life. And that's when I started singing a lot in the healthcare facilities too. And I found, like, we all are very complicated creatures. We have so many things about us that make us who we are. And God wants us to use all of them. And so none of them was total fulfillment because they're part of the package. And so as I explored more and came to look inside myself in areas, I had to examine cultural beliefs, and I had to look at why don't you do that? Or why can't you sing that kind of song? Or why are you driven more in that direction? And sometimes it's just because God's calling you, but some of it was cultural, and I had to find freedom from those things that were not necessarily truth from God, but just cultural barriers that are put on, expressed to you from the time you're young, and whether where you lived, from people you knew, whether your own family, whether it was something you just read and came to the conclusion yourself. And so when I got free of all those, I realized how much opportunity there is for us in life, and everything doesn't have to be so rushed and packed in and focused in one direction always. But God wanted to fulfill me in every area all around, and continues to. And so when I started looking in like that, that was when I decided to write songs of many styles, because I knew it could help many people, but I also knew it brought me enjoyment, and it was okay to admit that. It was okay to say, I really enjoyed singing a song about that flower and working in my yard, or about the love I had. Maybe I felt passionate about Joe, or maybe I wanted to sing about romance when I was younger, or any of those things. Okay, and I see I've got 1 minute left, but I think I'll probably end it there today. Or whether some songs I've been writing lately are for children, and I hope in the future I can make a children's album. I have 2 or 3 albums of songs that are not ready for production all the way. One album is, and the other I'm trying to get the music done for, but that's down the road quite a ways. So every phase is so special, right, in our lives, and I hope to write a song about each time on the journey. So thank you so much for watching. This was Day 3 Songs, Doreen Pinkerton Reaching Out Ministry.